the organizational meeting and regular business meeting of the Horsehead Central School District Board of Education. We're coming to you from the MNC. Tonight is the initial meeting for the start of the 24-25 school year. If you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The board, and community, and administrative faculty and staff who are here. As I open this meeting tonight, we have 3 members of the board that will meet their oath of offices. So I'll ask the district clerk to please come forward and administer the new board members' oath of office that they will sign to Ms. Christine Dale, Ms. Julie Monahan, and Ms. Susan Arnbarski.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and will faithfully discharge the duties as Board of Education member according to the best of my ability. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. You want to raise your right hand?
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Julie.
Raise your right hand and repeat that.
I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sue.
Thank you.
And congratulations to all of our new board members. At this time, I turn the mic over to our senior board member, Mr. Warren Conklin, who will ask for nominations for the position of board president.
So, I will open the floor to nominations for President of the Board of Education. Christine,
I'd like to nominate Warren Conklin.
is there a second? Okay. Other nominations? All right, so we call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much for your confidence in me. I appreciate it.
District clerk will now administer the oath of office for the newly elected board president.
Raise your right hand.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as President of the Board of Education according to the best of my ability.
And I will hand the gavel over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. And now the meeting is turned over to the board president. So congratulations.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to take nominations for the position of Vice President. Ms. Allen?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Liz
second?
Second.
Other nominees?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Dan Christmas for Vice President.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Anybody like to say anything?
Can I use this? Yep.
I appreciate the nomination very much, but I would respectfully decline the nomination. I intend to support Ms. Odell Wheeling for Vice President, and so would prefer not to be considered.
All right, so
Liz Odell gets the.
all in favor of Liz, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? Okay.
Say 4.5, 4.6, district clerk.
All right, and now 4.06, the district clerk will administer the oath of office for the vice president.
Remember last year? Yeah, no, I'm gonna read it right here. I'm not good at that. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
And I will willfully discharge the duties
and I will willfully discharge the duties
as Vice President of the Board of Education
as Vice President of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations. Yep, right there. Perfect, thank you.
Ms. Williams, would you rather stay there, or would you rather?
I can say this one.
Nope.
All right,
So moving on to section 5, 5.01, meeting action vote for the appointment of the district clerk and the deputy district clerk for 24-25. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Curiosities, discussion, comments? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so now we will administer the oath.
Terry, start with you.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties as district clerk of the Horse School District according to the best of my ability.
Want she signing? Okay. Definitely.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as Deputy District Clerk, Horse Central School District according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. You know how to keep writing and signing.
Yeah.
Thank you. You all set? You'll take your pen back? Okay.
As long as
I
I-
know I'll need it next. All set.
All right. Move to administer the oath of office to the superintendent, so section 7. District clerk will now administer the oath of office for the superintendent.
If you'll raise your right hand and
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Superintendent of Schools according to the best of my ability.
We move to section 8, and we have an action vote on 8.02 through 8.08. But before I open that to discussion or comments, board members, if they click on 8.01 on the action vote, a chart will come up and it will indicate if there's any extra pay involved for these appointments, or in essence, if it's considered a part of their job. So with that stated, I need a motion for 8.02 through 8.08.
So,
Second.
Curiosities, discussion, comments?
Yeah, how can we appoint a to be determined for the claims auditor, 8.07? Aren't we supposed to actually assign somebody to that if we're taking action on it?
You're taking an action that it's, at this point, an open position, we are in the process of hiring.
In the meantime, the deputy
Yep.
steps in. Is the deputy claims auditor, 8.08.
Okay, so we're still trying to figure out who the, okay.
Yeah, we're just going through the hiring process.
So wouldn't we as a board then want to move the deputy up to claims auditor and then look for an alternate so that we actually have somebody already doing that position?
No, we would not be looking to move back into the actual role as claims auditor. She'll continue to fill in as the alternate until we fill the actual role.
Okay, and, so Megan is payroll mostly, that's her position?
She's our accountant.
Okay. And there's no, okay, and I think she was appointed last year as the alternate, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Can I just ask a follow-up? Same subject. Thanks, Katrina.
So when a person is identified for that role, will that be brought before the board again for official appointment?
Yep.
Okay.
As soon as we can, I do have the emergency authority, but I follow that and then bring it to the board as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks.
And one last question about that, that is a stipend position, and so then, are we allowed to change the stipend amount if we want to?
Just a second. Katie, we set that as the stipend, right?
The stipend was determined based on the volume of work and the time it takes to perform the duties.
Yes.
So then before, since we do have to have it, does the board fill in as this position, since it's something that is mandated by the state? I mean,
The board-
technically, we could appoint somebody from us.
You can't appoint somebody from the board. You can appoint the board, which
Right.
means every single member of this board has to do a certain amount of that work. Not just one person, the whole board has to. So basically, say we got 9 members, we have 10 months, well, 12 months. At least, every member's doing at least 1 month of accounting practices every week. And then at least 3 would have to do the extra 3 months for the 12 months, correct?
It would be some sort of division of
Yeah.
the work amongst the 9 members of the board.
It's a safety concern, so that the board does not have the control over the money and the claims.
So it's not like it wouldn't be presented, so just going over like the documents that went over this past year and looking at things as far as the process goes, it's my understanding that the claims auditor is the person who, at the end, is looking over purchases and seeing complicity with those purchases, basically saying, yes, it can be made, like giving the green light to, yes, follow through, or no, get stopped with the payment.
No,
So-
they don't authorize or anything. What they do is they're verifying that the district and the departments have followed the procedures of purchasing and claims in place. And when there's anomalies, that's what comes on your claims report at the end of the month. Like we said during the year, when we are BOCES, we see claims reports at 10, 11, 12% errors. And the reason being is most of that was done at BOCES and most of it was at BOCES. Once we brought it back internally within our control, that rapidly went down to about 3%. Now we're hovering somewhere around 1 to 2% human error issues. And usually it's on timing and issues of the purchase.
So do you remember how much we paid BOCES when we had it out there, when we appointed
Okay.
BOCES to do it?
I have to look back, but it was not an April service,
Yep.
so we paid the full cost of the non-paid.
would say to help the board, this administration would not be recommending the BOCES CBO at all to do anything for this district. It's a shame, we have to say that, but that's the reason why we're no longer with BOCES.
Okay, call the question on all items in section 8. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
We marked me down for an abstention on 8.07, just because like I said, I'm not sure if you're really supposed to vote on 2 terms.
All right, so moving to section 9, we have action vote on 9.02 through 9.36. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Curiosities, discussion, comments?
Just one procedural question. And Charles, this may be at your own design, but I'm wondering if Dr. Tay should have doctor in front of his name as well. I, for one, am proud that he has that credential.
We will update that, that's a technical.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron?
I have a question on 9.22, just wondering why they're hiring a retired teacher or extracurricular athletic fund treasurer. Was there not a current employee teacher that was willing to take that?
We have posted, we do not get many, but once they're in the position, we have the option of going away from them through our agreement with the HTA. Mary Rogers wished to continue, and we chose to continue her. It's all in accordance with the contract. Yep. Very good question.
Sue?
9.14, I'll be voting no on that part. No. There. Did you hear me? The live stream can't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, 9.14, I will be voting no on that part. Sorry.
Yeah, so I did want to have some questions about that too. For the 9.14 and the legal counsel, we didn't get any other options as far as if there were other firms that could be doing things cheaper or like a full breakdown of exactly what it is that they're providing to us service-wise. I know that we had the one component the last year, it was, I believe you said 45,000 or 40,000. I asked this question a couple times, you answered, you were very helpful. And then the other piece of it was administration, and how much that retainer was. I do believe it's important for us to, we get in the habit of reappointing, but I think it's important for us as a board to look at multiple options, the same way that we did it with our auditors when we looked at, there were several choices, and we got to see who brought what to the table, and it was reviewed by our audit committee, and I think that's a practice that we need to reinstate. I think it's very important because we have to be fiscally conservative in all avenues, because we saw what it was like this year going through it, even a couple $1,000 matters. So, yeah.
So that is a process we do for all these services listed as far as non-counsel, fiscal advisors, legal. The process you just saw for the auditors is a process we'll do for all of those services as well. They are due to either be extended or a new RFP issued at the end of the next fiscal year. So these are appointed based on current contracts that have already run that RFP process approved by the board a couple of years ago. So yes, they will run the exact same process as you saw with the auditors. Proposals will be solicited from other providers, costs as well as past experience, references, location, a variety of things can be considered when looking at an RFP. It's not exactly like a bid, we have to go with the lowest responsible bidder. There are other factors, but yes, you are right, these will
Okay, so then what would also be helpful then, I know you do a lot of work and I appreciate that, but especially for the people who are coming on to be able to see, like, this is where we are in this contract and it expires in this, you know, like one more year left, and that way we can make determinations and go from there. I think that'd be helpful. Thank you, Katie. I'm also voting no on 9.14 though.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? And you have the two no votes on 9.14. All right. Moving to section 10, we have an action vote on 10.02 through 10.04. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Inquiries, discussion, comments.
So last year, I believe we only put in stars at,
No.
we had both? Okay.
There's a quirk in the law that you have to have two.
Two, okay.
And if you don't have two, you've got to make some type of arrangement.
The most widely
Certain.
publicized adoption, which, for adoption,
Very good.
you know.
And we don't want to deal with the New York Times and the Heralds.
And then the only other question I had was, when I clicked on the school board memberships, it says that we're going to be a member of the Chemung County Chamber of Commerce.
Yes,
Do we have to pay them a membership fee?
$617 it went up this year.
It went up $617.
No, it went up to 617, it was 600.
So schools get a break then, because I remember when I was in business, it was more expensive than that.
Well, we're a government agency.
Okay. And if we choose to not do that for the $617 to save it, what do we lose?
I can't say you gain anything, it's good practice to be a member of your chamber that supports major educational initiatives throughout. I sit on their business educational review board, but it's sporadic. It's the community, so we were looking at the state versus the community. We've been a member of Chemung County. It's just like today, Chemung County put on a beautiful Vietnam veteran pinning ceremony, even though it was sponsored by a politician who represents the area. It still represented the three areas, but highlighted the Chemung County veterans. So people from town, chamber were also there as well. So it's an interrelationship that we have with all of our businesses too.
All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed for the 10.04.
Abstention. Section 11, action vote on 11.02 through 11.16. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Curiosities, discussion, comments. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Section 12, action vote 12.02 through 12.110. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion, comments, inquiries? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Am I on 12 or 13? I lost track.
13.
That's what I thought. All right, section 13, action vote 13.02 through 13.09. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Curiosities, discussion, comments? Go ahead, Katrina.
I have a question. When I'm looking over the the exhibit for the student code of conduct, it talks about the character counts that we subscribe to the Character Counts Coalition. And so I looked up what that was, and it showed that you could have memberships and like there was different levels. So do we actually pay them to be a part of that, or we're just
I
kind
don't
of?
believe I checked, I don't recall us paying.
I do not believe we pay anything.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any membership fees associated with that. Yes. So that was my main concern with that. I do have some other concerns about it, but I feel like that could be brought up. Well, I think that we should kind of go over and make sure that it's really clear the steps as far as like what happens with when penalties happen. Like the manner in which discipline is applied. I feel like sometimes discipline may not be applied evenly, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the past, but I think that going through, we could work on this and iron it out to make sure that like steps are really clear for people to be able to see, if you get into trouble, first violation is this, second violation equals this, third violation. And then I was also wondering, I know we had it in one of the reviews of policy that we just did, what was it? It wasn't Title IX, but the students' rights as far as their due process rights, making sure that those are a little more clear. So that's what I just wanted to say. There's a lot to go through with 32 pages, but I think that it should, we didn't actually go through and reread this on the policy committee, and I know that we're all rereading it and going through it now as a board collectively to approve it, but I think to go through and like really look at it would be a good idea.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed to 13 out of 3.
Abstentions? Section 14, action vote on 14.02 through 14.09. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? Sue?
I brought this, okay, I'll learn this. I brought this up at, when I met with you and Tom about August 15th, possibly changing that board meeting date, because Katrina and I already had vacation planned in January, and it will be, I know it's the tax warrant date, but also there's going to be more presentation on our redistricting or whatever on the timeline that you sent us late this afternoon. So I would really like to be at the August meeting, but I can't make that date or that during that week. And my other question is, the high school graduation's on there. Is that because so many board members go that you put that on there, or is that just for information?
No, it's expected the board members are to attend graduation.
Right, but it's not actually a board meeting.
It
I mean, I
can-
know
it can
we'll all be,
yeah.
wait, but it's not like we hold a meeting when graduation's going on. I just wondered why it was on there.
Because the board told them to put it on there.
Okay,
Yeah. That's the only reason, I mean, honestly, it's so that the board could plan their calendars.
okay.
In regards to your question on the 15th, I did go from our meeting and talk to Katie. The problem is the tax warrant has to be during that week. It can't be moved out of that week either before or after. It is also the third Thursday of the month, and this year it just happens to coincide with the tax warrant. It usually doesn't. But because we are obligated by law to get the tax warrants, print them, sort them, and distribute them, we're hoping that Thursday is the right day, because we usually will see it either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of that week, and then we must immediately go to print. So we can't delay it. That's the problem, Katie.
I just remember other school districts last year having them later than when we've had ours. And I mean, I don't know.
That
what
might
all
be
those
their taxing agencies, we have to deal with ours, that's the problem.
So, I mean, once we set the rates, we need time to print, we need time to receive them. We go through an extensive process of removing all the ones for escrow, and getting them to the post office timely for us to receive the bills. To shorten that time frame would be pretty unreasonable to do so.
Well, I was thinking like August 19th, which is a Friday to a Monday. But if not, I think that maybe we would need to have 2 meetings in August, because I think we have an important thing coming up with the redistricting, and maybe you could have the tax warrant that Thursday and then another board meeting later to discuss the other.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. So I had looked that up because this was something that happened to me last year when I wanted to be at the August meeting. And I read that it has to be, everything has to be mailed up by September 1st is the deadline. So I do believe that's why other school districts are able to do it later, is because the deadline is actually September 1st. The other thing that I was reading is, as far as central school districts, I think that we're supposed to have that organizational meeting on the second Tuesday of July. I had read that, I forget exactly where, it was something earlier today, actually. So I don't know if everybody wants to have the organizational meeting next July on the 1st, or if we want to wait to do it on the 8th or the 15th. You know, timing-wise, I don't know how everybody else feels, if they feel like, you know, July 1st is a good day. I think that organization-wise, maybe like, I don't know how everybody else is feeling about
If
that.
I can clarify, the law actually reads the first Tuesday of the month, or it can be altered by the board up to so many days if the board chooses to. However, remember, people are not sworn in until they have the official meeting, so that's why they try to get board members seated as soon as possible. If the Tuesday falls on the 4th, it's the following Wednesday. Is the 5th is the recommended, otherwise set by the board. So this calendar is reflective of our procedures and policies at this point. If the board wishes to change it, change it. But I think it's very wise to get your board seated as soon as possible.
Okay, and then just to reiterate too, being able to move that August 15th as far as the redistricting goes, I think that's very important to be able to have. As I don't know if anybody else is out of town in August around that time, but I think it's important to be able to have as many board members present for the meeting as possible.
I am not available the following week, the week of August 19th, so, just another day to plan. But I think this is something that we have all the time. There's always times where some of us are gonna miss the meeting, there's vacations, and I think we get into a bad situation if we keep trying to move meetings to adjust to everybody's schedule. So I think as long as we have a quorum, then we're okay.
I also would be available the following week, so I would prefer if we could go earlier than this passes. And Warren, because of the tax audit, I'm not available before, like tomorrow.
All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
To all of 14 or a specific document in 14?
Oh, sorry, I'm opposed to, sorry, just the calendar, just 1404, and specifically, I'm opposed to the August 15th meeting for the tax warrant / redistricting.
Abstentions? All right, so now we are going to move to a regular business meeting, so I just need a motion to go to a regular motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Is it possible to turn down the air conditioning?
I don't have it. It's all controlled.
I won't be raising my hands because I'm sitting down. Just so you know.
Normally, I will tell you, so we normally don't have that problem.
So I left during the one board meeting
Cold.
because I was so cold.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of thought when I started to do it. No, are you sure? I should text my husband. Tell me to do it.
All right, so moving along, we need approval of the minutes, so that's a vote on 2.01. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
So I'm just gonna abstain because I wasn't there during finance, so I will be abstaining.
Okay. All right, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? At this time, I'm unaware of any agenda changes, so I have none to announce. Before I go through the spiel of our rules about community questions and comments, is anybody planning on speaking tonight? Yes?
Oh, no, I just waited. See, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you waited. All right, I will just say this, at the last board meeting when we approved a lot of changes, the public speaking section is now 5 minutes, and I'll just say that at this time. All right, so we move to section 5, and we'll have a presentation, which is the Demographic Analytics Advisor's presentation. Try to say that 3 times fast. Welcome.
Yes, I did do that right, so we're all set. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, members of our viewing public at home, faculty and staff, we started off just the last Thursday of school because we're about a month behind. We're hoping to have this for June. So we started with our faculty, but with the budget and everything going on, we needed a little more time. So that's why we're here tonight with continuing the build timeline. This was sort of presented to our faculty in its rough form, and there's already been some shifts in the timeline that we're presenting tonight, and even some shifts that they see that really aren't major shifts. It's just correcting the right position for things to go forward as we go through this year and the next. So as we start this redistricting process, our next slide, I have to remember which button it is. This one. That one. Oh, if I turn it on, it works. There we go. So turning on, continuing to build, you see this common theme. We're sort of stepping through it. So the district started the process really in 2021. But from October 23 to March 2024, the census survey was sent out throughout our community to collect information. Roughly between April and May of this year and going into June, demographic analysis of the census as well as the information from all their sources and data sources was used to compile to bring forward a presentation for tonight. Tonight is the demographer's analysis of that information as well as information on what they gathered from the public. We have to go through this because basically after tonight's presentation in July, the demographer is presenting tonight on redistricting, the presentation to the Board Board of Education, but also to the community, because we know a lot of people are actually tuning into our webinars and broadcasts. The demographer will present, will be shared with families out there by our website as well, once we can load the information from tonight. We'll also be talking about one critical start time development, because no matter what, this decision has to be made along with the boundary lines, and that is regards to the high school. And the reason that is because of the high school is because the high school connects to a couple things: athletics, education, and most importantly, BOCES start time. And BOCES start time is 9 o'clock. Currently, our students get a half a class before they go to BOCES. And the proposal, we want to make sure that we efficiently use our staffing and the students get full classes instead of what are known as bookend classes. And that means our start time, instead of being 7:50, will need to be somewhere around 7:20 to 7:25-ish, which was the start time of the high school originally. Or it has to be 8:40 to 8:45 because you load the buses and you get up to BOCES for 9 o'clock. BOCES time is not going to change, so we have to get our schedule there. The reason why the high school start time is so important is because everything else is built by busing and the schedule, because that will tell us how we can set the buses apart to try to make sure that we ensure that buses come and leave an appropriate short amount of time. Similarly, at the high school right now, dismissal is at 3:02, but our last bus sometimes pulls out 3:25, 3:35, 3:40, depending on our very structured elementary runs that are shorter in day than they are. In 2025, that will be taken care of because our elementary schools will be going just about 7 hours a day per school instead of the 6 hours that they are right now. That will aid our educational preparedness as well as align our bus schedules. But no matter what, we need to have one time that's sort of the anchor time, and that's the high school because of BOCES, education, and athletics. In addition, we'll have digital frequently asked questions available from our census and some of the information that we have tonight. Sam Mack will be working on that, and that will be on our website. You'll actually see on our website a flag that will say district redistricting so that people know where to go to, like when we're in budgeting, we go there, and that way you can find the information. In August, we'll continue this discussion because there's no decisions tonight. This is more discussions, responding to question and answers, having another discussion, having the public come out because they will be aware of it, but that isn't the only time for the public because as we go into September, we'll also be hosting, even though it's not part of community engagement, but we will be having a meeting for the public to come out and ask questions and go over the demography as well at that point. But in September, the Board of Education must make the decision on redistricting boundaries of the choices, as well as I will need to know which is the preferred high school time. Once that's done, then the next step, the 25-26 elementary, intermediate school, middle school start times, and bus routing development will start. That will take between September and I think roughly around November, December. So in October, because we have those decisions, we will be able to start notifying the impacted individuals of which school their children will be placed in that are from Center Street, but also there is a very minimal amount of changes between Ridge Road, Garden Road, and Big Flats to the schools too, as well as the boundaries. We want to give those parents as much time as possible to understand the process. In November, the district bus routes will be reviewed, trying to make sure that we either have a 2-tier system or a 3-tier system, try to figure out better cost effectiveness. And then in December 2024, the initial staff placements should be determined in our agreement with our instructional staff through our recently developed MOA with trying to take care of our Center Street professionals so that we move and help them into their new buildings as they establish a new culture which has been being worked on in-house currently throughout this year and next, which is coming from the ground up with Mr. Kohler and Mr. Gill and all the individuals that have been working very hard to try to make sure that we're in it for all of us. It's a new way, not the old way or their way. In 2025-26 school start times, district bus routes should be able to be finalized because that will be done by the bus routing. That is really something that once the first decisions are made, the others come very naturally. We'll try to compress them as much as we can. Once that's done, in early winter, we will start school branding discussions with the elementary schools, because we've already done our branding, but the elementary schools, it's not our way, it's not their way, it's a new way. This is one of the things that the faculty said they want to participate with their students, all students coming into the school, so that the school is about the new culture that's established. And in spring 2025, the elementary school communities will input on the branding, most likely probably around election time. And the building moves will begin for staff members somewhere in the spring. Roughly in the summer of 2025, the elementary school's branding will be finalized and announced. The elementary building will have meet and greets for their new students and families, as well as the building. And on the 13th in fall 2025, the district will consolidate the 3 elementary schools as approved by the voters in this, I think it was December 7th, 2021. Ridge Road students and staff will move to Center Street Elementary School for 1 year, while Ridge Road is sort of shuttered and full construction goes on into the middle of the plant. And then by summer, fall 2026, Ridge Road Elementary School, construction will be complete. Ridge Road Elementary School will be reopened with the staff and students. Center Street Elementary will still be a district use facility and have the option down the road if we need to for emergency use until we figure out the last part, of course, that's 2030. So that's the timeline. If the faculty and staff see some changes at home, that's what we meant. Notice in the bottom it says, please note that the timeline may need to be adjusted or changed. That's because it is still a living document with certain key milestones. And if we can do things sooner, that would be better, because the earlier we can give notice, the better it is for everyone. So that's the timeline of what we started. So kicking into that process, I'd like to introduce from Demographics Analytic Advisors, Dr. Ron Prevost, who will be leading us through. I think the document is on your computers under executive content. Once the presentation is done, it will be loaded onto our website like we always do. So, Dr. Ron, all yours.
Thank you. It is now. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Ron Prevost. I'm here to talk to you about the demographic study that we completed and redistricting options for your schools. I just briefly want to go over the outline for what I'm going to be presenting. We'll talk about who we are, what our goals and approach were, the historic and future trends in enrollment for your district. We will go over the community questions and the responses that we got from that, from your yearly census, the redistricting process and options, and then next steps. Well, who we are. We're a team, demographic analytics advisors and proper GIS. Together, we have literally decades of experience in demographics and in mapping. Oh, sorry. It's coming in? Okay. Okay. Our goals and approach were to be data-driven and to use industry standard practices. We're engaged to develop new boundaries for attendance areas based on voter-approved closing of Center Street Elementary School. This process is extremely rigorous if you have to look at enrollment trends and births and migration and projections of children in small areas. And then you need to be able to balance utilization rates of schools in order to accomplish the districting process, as you know. Now let's take a look at enrollment trends. The school district has experienced a 12.5% decline in enrollment since the 99-2000 school year, and especially in the last decade. The enrollment decline has occurred across the district, but especially at Center Street, as you can see here on the chart. The differential decline after 2019 is easier to see if we look at the share of the K-4 students by each building. Ridge Road and Big Flats increased in the past 5 years. Gardner Road stays relatively stable, and Center Street declines by nearly 5%. Births have fallen by 18% since 2011. It's consistent with national trends in delayed childbearing, the effects of inflation and housing costs. As you know, it costs a lot to have a child. In 1970, 56% of all U.S. family households had kids. In 2020, it was 40%. Fertility rates have been going down. There were 1.6 births per woman in 2023 in their childbearing years, roughly half as many as there were in 1960 when I was born, and below the replacement level of 2.1 children that need in order to sustain a stable population. There was a brief uptick during COVID in 2021, but since then birth rates have dropped by another 3%, and this decline has been experienced among all racial groups. We can see very similar patterns for births in Chelan County overall. These trends are similar to those playing out through the country, and in many places, but especially in the Northeast and Midwest. We forecasted births based off of historical trends, as well as the forecasted number of women of childbearing age. Over the next decade, we forecast a slow decline in births in the district. The best practice is to forecast kindergarten enrollment for births 5 years prior. While we see the district has slightly more enrollment than births, which accounts for migration, that number has also been in decline. To account for the changing school choice and migration, we looked at grade progression ratios. The number is very close to 1, meaning that once people enroll their children in the district, they tend to stay. We then use births and grade progression ratios to forecast K-4 enrollment, which continues a slow decline over the decade due to decreasing births and slowing in migration. We compared these numbers to these projections to school capacity numbers. All schools are currently well under capacity, and without change, their current utilization will continue to decline over the next 10 years. If Center Street did not close, we would be looking at a 65% utilization across the district. Big Flats had a high of 80% and Gardner Road, we looked at 60%, 5% utilization for Big Flats to a high of 80% at Gardner Road. Above 85% is considered fiscally efficient. A key component to redistricting is understanding the concerns of the community. We sent out surveys during the annual district census and asked the community if they had concerns about the closing of Center Street. We received 1,500 responses, with 900 of those respondents having children. The overwhelming majority of residents did not have any comments or concerns that they voiced in this census. Just over 100 residents responded with some form of comment or question, and another nearly 100 residents responded to the questions that said they had not comment or wrote in, not applicable. Households with children were more likely to respond, yet only a small percentage of them had concerns about closure. The vast majority of questions were about logistics, such as where would my child go to school, and when will we know? There was only one write-in response that was totally against the closure of Center Street. There will be a second. Next, we will discuss redistricting options. We received and processed data from the school district and engaged the community and used best practices to develop the options. What did we take into account? Well, we had to balance the school facility utilization. We had to consider economic, cultural, and ethnic diversity of the students, account for future declines, which we projected, close proximity, maximizing busing efficiencies in the transportation of students. We also had to establish clear feeder patterns and continuity, minimize the number of students that were impacted and what that impact would be, make every effort to establish contiguous zones, and use major roads and natural boundaries whenever possible. Next, we'll go on to visually describe the current attendance area maps and options. This is your current attendance area map. I'll give you a minute to take a look. In this, Big Flats is in green, Center Street is in red, Gardner Road's in brown, and Ridge Road is in blue. Now we'll move on to the options. In both options, we consolidated Ridge Road to be one contiguous area and to include the majority of the Center Street, the area in Center Street. Gardner Road receives an area that was part of Ridge Road, and Big Flats receives the remainder from Center Street. The black lines that you see on the map show the overlay of the existing boundaries. Option B is very similar to A, but the differences are primarily where the lines are drawn between Big Flats and Gardner Road. One component of this is there's a very crisp line by 86. I'll see if I can go back here and show you the difference. There's option A, there's option B. So you see it's very small differences, but they're between those two attendance areas. As discussed earlier, the best practice is that utilization is 85% or higher. As you can see in the current school year, the district is well below the mark at 69%, with Center Street having only a 58% utilization and Gardner Road having 82%. If Center Street were to be closed today, the proposed attendance area in option A, there would be an average utilization of 92%, and all three schools would be balanced. We projected future enrollments for option A based on the methodology presented earlier. All schools show declining enrollments, yet still have the capacity to receive more students if district trends reverse. Similar to option A, option B provides an average utilization of 92%, and all three schools are also balanced. In option B, all schools show declining enrollments and still have the capacity to receive more students, again, the same as in A, if the district trends reverse. In the next two slides, we look at the characteristics of the schools under the three scenarios, the current and two options. The district is 92% white, 4% African American, and 4% Hispanic. If Center Street were closed today, there's virtually no impact on the racial makeup of the schools under either option. Center Street presently has a much higher percentage of free and reduced meals than the other three schools. With the closure of Center Street, both options A and B balance that out. Finally, in developing the options, we attempted to limit the number of students impacted. The total impact would be a little more than 300 students, with the majority of those being reassigned from Center Street. In option A, outside of reassigning students from Center Street, only a few students, 24, in Ridge Road would be assigned to Gardner Elementary. In option B, 17 students would be reassigned from Ridge Road to Big Flats, and 7 students from Ridge Road would be assigned to Gardner. The next steps will be your discussion and determination on the best approach over the next couple of months. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Here's our current makeup. The recommendations from the demographics is option A, which you can see the old part of Ridge Road, which is the purple to the left, is now part of Gardner Road for the most part, some to Big Flats. And then the hardest part is the area in red, which is Center Street, goes to Gardner Road, Big Flats, as well as Ridge Road, which we knew that would be the case. But that shows the difference there. Then what happens is from here, going to B, is that area that was Ridge Road, that is a big part of Gardner Road here, that turns into Big Flats. From what I understand, the reason being is there's crossover roads right along that edge, up there at that base. What did I do? Oh, I turned it off. Wrong button. That's Catlin area going out to Millport area that our buses are regularly navigating the hills. And there's places where you can go right to Garden Road, places you go left to Big Flats, and the buses can be on this sort of choke point of the road coming. One would be going to Big Flats, one would be going to Garden Road. The natural boundaries is 86, and I do believe you said Grand Central is that dividing point. Yes. So what happens is, this is one thing, but I know they have a very neat little slider program, but it's not here right now. What happens is the slider program that we will have access to shortly, you basically can, like a window shade, slide it across, and it will show how the map changes from this color to any of the options, so that as you draw it, you can see where the flow is going. So that's the presentation. The biggest part about it is both of these options impact around, outside of Center Street, about 23 to 25% of our student population, inclusive of Center Street, and they did try to minimize it. That one of the things we asked is, any changes to it obviously changes that, but this was their best at trying to do it and minimize and get all the parameters that we sort of said we were trying to shoot for. Equal schools, similar schools and demographics, similar socioeconomic status, similar cultural ethnicity, similar size, and with the ability that in time we will come into our enrollment with no problem, but the facilities will be very well used. So at this time, we open it up for any questions initial before we go forward. Christine?
I think this was extremely helpful. So I like the data analysis, the visualization, very good. I like how you also looked at the breakdown by race and economic status and everything. I know that was good, extremely helpful. The question I have, and again, it's only a 2% difference, but as we're looking at the difference between A and B, when Ridge Road closes for construction and everybody who is supposed to be redistricted to Ridge Road goes to Center Street, you know, Ridge Road is showing option A at 94% utilization and option B at 92% utilization. Do those utilization numbers work in the landscape of Center Street, right? And is that going to put, you know, going, like, if we chose option A at the higher utilization for Ridge Road, you know, is there space at Center Street for those students?
And that's a very good question. And I can look right at Tony because we've gotten this question several times. And the answer is very simple. With pre-K, we move pre-K around right now through the construction. Eventually, every single building will have its pre-K. Center Street will house K through 4 in any one of these situations. We've already mapped that out.
Okay, so they just won't have pre-K then?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Tony?
And we have to look at special programming specifically?
Yeah, depending on both seasons and so
Pre-K,
forth.
those in that situation.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
But we'll be able to fit our current program in all of it.
Okay.
Good question.
Christine, when I'm looking at that, if I'm looking at this current year, it shows Center Street with a capacity of 460, and then projection for option A is 456, so it's like right there. But I did also have a question besides commenting back.
Sure.
I know that transportation is here. Have you been able to take a look at this at all and see which option may be more feasible in your neck of the woods?
All eyes on Rich.
I told him he might get a question.
So, I mean, I know it's really early on, but I'm just wondering if there's a preference on the transportation side.
We've taken a look at it.
Can we,
Um, We've taken a look at it. Kind of what we've talked a little bit about was trying to get more data. Also, what you're looking at is because of this new configuration, we're transporting approximately 52% of our student body. Is that going to change? Is that number going to increase? That increase will have a factor. The other item is that how many are you going to 2 or 3 as far as shifts for the bell system? Theoretically, the going to 3 makes it easier as long as they're not short.
Rich, can you add a little? What he means by 3 is a 2-tier bus system, which we currently have, or a 3-tier bus system. And what all the difference is, 2-tier, right now what we have is we pick up middle school and high school in one shift. We pick up elementary and intermediate school in another shift. A 3-tier system would mean we'd have a high school shift, a 5 through 8 shift most likely, and an elementary shift. And the buses can run at different times. That allows you to play with the start times as well. But that's what he means by 2 or 3. Go ahead.
So, and again, if you make those 3 tiers too short, we're not utilizing it. All that with consideration is, can we try to do this with the same amount of personnel we have and the same amount of buses? 3-tier system means we could probably, again, I don't have all the specifics, but that would be our goal, is how we can do that with the existing staff and the existing buses. We could add a couple more bus routes without having to work at additional equipment, but the question then would be on staff and personnel. So I'd like a little bit more time to digest this. Specifically, we have to look at the numbers that they had mentioned, where the kids are actually physically located. And again, I don't want to bore you, but every year it's a different thing for us. So it's not, okay, we've got established routes, we'll just carry it over. We've got 4th graders going to 5th grade, that changes routes. You got 6th graders going to 7th grade, middle school, that changes the routes. High school kids that now graduate. So every year it's a change. I think the bottom line is that our job is to do it, so whatever the board decides, we will do our best to meet your obligations.
And I appreciate that answer. I just would like it personally to hear some feedback from you folks as what would be most cost effective for us as a district. And I know it's hard to take those
They won't be able
factors
to
in.
do that on this. The reason being is that cost effective comes after the boundaries and the parameters we put on the bus routing. Because I can tell you, can we make it very cost effective? Yes. It depends on what we say is times of routes. Officially, we go up to an hour and a half. Personally, I think I'd like an hour or less. But each has a cost, and those are some things that we can't put on the demographers, we can't put on the bus until we actually get the routes running. But it's a great question. Our goal is to try to do just that. Balance time versus money.
See, I would say in my opinion, that would be a huge conversation in my vote in deciding option A or B.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's a chicken and egg scenario. Miss?
Rich, I'll go too far. I have a question for you. And then, Dr. was it Prigos or?
Prigos.
Okay, I have a question for you as well. Rich, is there any way to look at what other districts, like wear and tear, our bus is going to go through faster with a 3-tier than we do with a 2-tier? Like, if we're using them more often for 3 runs versus 2, are we looking at a big financial change, or is there any way to tell?
I can tell you in general theory, transportation. 3-tier is usually, for a large district with large geographic areas, better than a 2-tier. Again, as long as you don't make those tiers too short. What a tier does is, it's not just a bus driver that does 3 tiers. Sometimes, depending on the geographic area, they'll do a 1st tier and 3rd tier. So sometimes it'll be a longer tier, so they'll do 1 and 3 based on geographic, and again, in our effort to try to avoid transfers. The other thing in general is you want the least amount of travel time from a school. So the larger any region is for a school means we have to accommodate more travel time. So any way you can make a boundary closer to a school, in theory, in general, you're better off. What would happen is with multiple tiers, we would try to stay with the same staffing, which means their contract is guaranteed 4 hours, so that would probably be an increase, with the hopes of not trying to have to add new bodies. I'm not promising that, but trying to give our drivers presently now more hours per day would be ideal. And then, of course, and again, this is all with the consideration, hopefully I don't get killed for this, is not taking into effect EED busing. Right now, I can give you the numbers and give you where we're at now with our present equipment, and we have a couple extra buses that if we really had to use, we could add on to, but the cost is going to be trying not to add more personnel.
Awesome, thank you. And Dr. Cruz, I'm wondering, you've done this many, many times. What are the pain points that a district's going to face throughout this process that you've seen? Like, can you give us some warning on what to be ready for?
Pain points. I mean, I'm usually on the statistics end.
Yeah.
There are so many other decisions that have to be made regarding routing and timing and making sure that the community is happy. And it's not just routing, but when you're trying to develop the route, you want to make sure that children don't have to cross a busy street. There's a whole variety of things that are involved, so it's not that easy just to draw a line on the map. And I guess the pain point is that one could develop a million of different scenarios, right? But every one of those scenarios impacts your diversity characteristics. It impacts your free lunch and free school characteristics. So it's really, I guess the pain point is don't try to play with the maps too much. And that's all I can say from that. There's probably other pain points that I'm not involved in.
That was perfect. That's awesome.
Just one more question. So can you go to the slide that shows the students impacted by the options? It's the second to last slide. Yeah, so,
That one?
no, keep going.
It's like the 17 versus
Keep
5.
going. That one.
Okay.
So if I'm reading this correctly, right, so the option A shows that there's basically 24 students, so obviously every student at Center Street is impacted, right? So take that out of the equation. So it shows that there's 24 students that are actually going to have to move their current elementary school to another elementary school. But if we look at option B, there's actually 40, because you had your Gardner Road to Big Flats, which is 16, your Ridge Road to Big Flats, which is 17, your Ridge Road to Gardner Road is 7. So is that correct? So in option A, there's 24 current students impacted outside of Center Street, and then 40 in option B.
That's right.
It just might be helpful to put that on the slide as well, just to kind of point that out. So it's, here's the students in addition to Center Street that are totally impacted. Because saying that the total impact is 313 and 329, that's obviously Center Street's all impacted, right? So it makes it, I think.
It's almost like putting qualifiers.
Right.
This is Center Street, 100%.
Right. Right. That's
Yeah, and one of the things when we first saw this is we looked at that like option A, option B, and there's less kids in A, but there's more balance in B. So it's really trying to find that, I can't remember which slide it is. It's utilization slide or something. Here, option B, total enrollment 438, 427. I'm sorry, I just can't see that well if I'm saying it wrong, but 447. But option A is 442, drops to 414 and 456. So this one has more balance across the grade levels, but it has more students moving to get that balance. So I think you're hitting on a good point. You have to look at all those pieces moving from the Mr. Christmas.
I would echo Christine's comments. I think it's a very helpful presentation, particularly the ability to see the demographics, and I think the way that we're trying to balance diversity demographics, economic demographics is positive, as well as minimizing the impact on students. I have a couple of just understanding questions. So number one, in all of the data that talks about enrollment capacity, are we utilizing the capacity that exists now, or the capacity that will exist at the conclusion of the existing building projects for the elementary schools?
I believe it's the capacity right now, with the understanding that that capacity is growing from the shift. Is that how you understood it?
That's how it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's taking into consideration those buildings will be functional at the end of this year.
Right, so I'm unclear, and then, it can be a follow-up, but
Sure.
when we look at like the ultimate utilization numbers you were just reviewing, and the percent utilized, again, is that a percent of the current capacity? No, it would be like, for example, 34?
I'm just trying to get back to that capacity piece. Current boundaries and current capacity. That's of the buildings as they exist right at this point with none of the new construction.
Right, and then we go to A and B, in the latter slides, it lays out estimated enrollment and capacity.
This is our capacity as of 2025
With the construction capacity.
with those rooms.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. And then, if you just go to the next slide, sort of, just a random, what is where it shows Ridge Road over the capacity? I know that is sort of backward looking, but I'm curious what that is.
This is option A, real quick. With option A, look at Ridge Road, and it says, I think it's the 96, isn't it? The students.
Mr. Christmas, you're referring to the 2015 number being above
Yeah.
capacity?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how the heck, it just jumped out at me, and I'm just
That's
wondering.
great, yeah. Yes.
That one right there, right?
Right.
Basically, what that is saying is that you use the option A boundaries.
It would have been over
It
capacity.
would have been over capacity.
Okay, not that we were over capacity at that time.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we have one for option B. You would have seen that as well
It's the same, right?
at that time.
And to the extent anyone knows, is there any historical reason why the Ridge Road district has been split like that?
Somebody did it.
I was on the school board in 2005 when they went with 5-6. I'm sorry, I spoke out of line.
Oh, no. Were you on in 2005?
No,
Or-
that one changed. I left in 2000.
2003. Was that when they split and redistrict, or was that when they went to Sing Sing to intermediate school? Yeah, you can, please feel free.
So when they went to 5-6, I was on the school board. And people from Middle were already being bused, I believe, into Gardner, and people from Gardner were already being bused to Ridge. And I said, if you're closing Sing Sing, you should make the boundaries fair for everybody. And I believe you should have moved that thing that's Gardner Road kids.
Right there.
I thought that should have been corrected back then, but they wanted the least impact, and they just wanted to impact the Sing Sing kids where they were going, so they kind of just dropped.
Okay.
But to me, Westinghouse Road would have been the divider,
Good dividing.
Good dividing point, so Westinghouse kids would go to Gardner, and the Westinghouse kids from down would go to Center Street, but they made the division in the middle of Gardner Road Playground where they play softball.
Okay,
So, and I was on that, I didn't.
Yeah, and
That's how they did it, they kept the kids where they were and dropped the Sing Sing kids.
Here's some of the things, I thank Sue for that, because we've been trying to figure out, because here's one of the things when we went through this. This lower portion of that island is some of the highest value homes that could have been at Gardner Road, but they were sent to Ridge Road. And we're trying to take all of that out, and that's what we've asked, is balance our schools. And that's the product of it. One would be like this, and one would be like this, but our schools are virtually balanced. And in each situation, notice that lower part is probably, like Sue was saying, where it should have been already at Gardner Road.
Yeah, and I honestly, it was not sort of a question, just for historical understanding, but I do think the fact that we're shifting toward contiguous zones as opposed to ones with islands makes a lot of sense. And I would just echo the comments that have been made about the transportation aspects. I recognize I may not be able to know definitively costs, et cetera, but I think as we consider options, knowing whether one or the other has some kind of perceived impact from a transportation perspective will be important. So
We will try to reach out to a couple districts that have gone through this, and also that have one or two-tier and three-tier busing, to give you some of that feedback, and that's the purpose of tonight, to get some of those questions. So these are all good questions. We'll try to get you the best information that's possible, like what you were asking, Aaron. The hard part is when rubber meets the road, no matter what, we won't know until we do the next one. But we want to try to get the best information possible for the decision, so thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Money?
I echo everyone's questions as well. I think transportation is certainly important, and then the options that Christine mentioned, and looking at numbers and consider a benefit. I would also like to see if transportation might be able to, as we're looking at different things, you said an hour and a half travel time is the max. I'd like to see, based upon A and B, how many kids would come close to that, because I want to make sure our kids aren't spending all their time on a bus either. So the least impact would be something that would be important to me, if that's possible to get those numbers by.
Yeah, without a sandbox, that's a little harder, but one of the things is, I know we'll be having conversations tomorrow now, and try to do that, because one of the things is, we already know our longer routes are on our fringes. The question is, how many do we have at an hour and a half right now? Do you, roughly?
Roughly, it's not as large as you would think. It's probably in the neighborhood of over an hour, but not an hour and a half, maybe 10.
Okay. How many of our buses are right at an hour or under?
Oh, that would put you at approximately 52-ish.
Of 80-something routes, right?
Well, more
79.
like a little under 7.
Okay. So that is something that we'll put together from these questions tonight, because I will say, and I said this before, our goal is to try to get savings and minimize times on the runs too. I know coming from a 3-tier system that I was in before, they shifted, and that was their main factor. Even if it required them to add some more buses and some more bus drivers, they wanted every run to be an hour or less. We would have a couple runs every year that might be a little bit more than an hour, and then what happens is transportation would try to break up that with their other runs to get them to an hour or less. The more that we can do, and it does generate savings, then we have some opportunities for some other type of transportation costs in the future. But good questions.
In the totals, I didn't see pre-K kids, so are there going to be rooms in the schools, or?
Pre-K is not part of the enrollment because we can't guess it, but I can tell you this, our whole ORSIS 20 plan has been with the state to build enough for full pre-K4 at the end of ORSIS 2030. So if, say we had 300 kids, we've been building our rooms to try to adapt to that so that then we can adjust the pre-K3. However, right now, we are not getting but about
right around 50% of our students for projected kindergarten. And this is the first year, we still have some room slots left. So we can't, because pre-K isn't funded the same way, we fund it because that's been important to the district.
Well, my question is, there'll be room for the kids in those 3 schools?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about your special ed programs that you have in those other?
Our special ed programs, there will be rooms. We may have to work with BOCES during some construction about repositioning at one point or another.
Okay, so, and I agree with bus runs. And when I think when I was on the board, we didn't like the kids on the buses longer than a half hour. I mean,
I would love to be able to do that, but 269 square miles, how do they do it?
well, the outer kids, I get that they're on longer, but the
Yeah.
inner kids, they don't need to be on the bus
Yeah.
all that time. It just causes disasters.
I'm hoping the free tier will help that out tremendously.
And for the staffing, are all the staff have to reapply for the elementary? How is that? What is happening with the staffing? The elementary teachers,
You mean for Center Street, the reassignment after we do close?
no, I mean, do all elementary teachers have to reapply for a position, or is it just?
No.
Okay.
Right now, only the teachers that are impacted would have to either go to seniority or apply for a position that's out there. And when we went to like our timeline chart, we have it set up, once this decision's made, then we can sort of set with our projections the sections. Once we know the sections for each building, we will do an early posting. And in that early posting, we've already worked out with like our instructional staff that the individuals from Center Street will get the first option of applying for the position of desire. And that doesn't mean they're guaranteed, but pretty much we're trying to match people with where they want to be as best possible, providing there's no unique circumstances. But that's something that we've committed to, and that's something that we're very proud of, the relationship with the HCA, that we were able to garner their support as well.
Okay, and then I have another question. Well, just a comment. Everybody's getting free lunches now, right?
Currently, if I recall, everyone's getting it right now. The secondary can be problematic. So go ahead, introduce your husband, because he's got a jacket for you.
Thanks, babe.
But currently what happens is everybody gets the free lunch according to the new regulations. The high school is one of those areas that can be a little challenging, but I think that's been extended for the next year. And what happens is we are also trying to make sure that legislatively we lobby that they regularly do that, put that into place. We had some movement on it in this year's budget that I think within the next budget, I'm hoping that the state will finally do exactly what the federal government did and say everybody in New York State will be fed. But currently, right now, we're doing the right thing to get everybody out, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I went through you.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. All right, I think that was all my questions.
Katrina?
I have a few questions. So when we were looking at the overall, so to go back, the census, we got 1,524 people basically to respond. It was less, not that.
I think it was like 1900
Right.
or something.
So when you were doing your look on the decline, it was just of the students going into the buildings, right? So like Center Street declined by 5% with the enrollment. But did you gather information about the people in the homes if they were, say, their children graduated, so there's no kids at home, but those people are still going to continue to live in their home for the next 5-10 years, and then maybe what we'll see in Center Street or the Village, because people still may be occupying those homes with no kids, but once it's time to sell those homes, then that area may have an uptick in children for new people moving into the area. So that was me trying to explain what I'm thinking. But the question is, did you look at that snapshot of taking the whole of not just kids impacted, but houses impacted, and the number of houses in each of the districts and zones, and maybe the cost of those houses, you know, like how much is a house in one particular zone now compared to another zone? Do you know what I mean?
I believe I understand what you're saying. We did not do an assessment of real estate pricing. I mean, Lord knows it changes significantly over time. Neighborhoods do turn over, and that was part of our projection, was to project the entire population, not just the children that might attend school, and we looked at each attendance area based on that. And that's why I was mentioning that we're seeing, let's say you have a neighborhood turnover, you're tired, you go to Florida, et cetera. The new family comes in. Well, the new families that are coming in are delaying childbearing. They're having them later. They're having fewer of them. And so our projection's perfect? No. But on average, as you look at this, yes, we are accounting for that sort of turnover that you're mentioning.
Okay, so then are we able to, so do we have a report that's got like more details than the slideshow presentation? So when we look, just for example, at the redistricting, it's hard to make determinations when you can't see, like we have the generalized, any of them, because they're, you know, okay, well, I guess if you go from A to B and for the two different options, but my guess is I was really trying to zoom in and see where the lines were, but you couldn't read any of the road names. So you couldn't tell where it was. So like last night I was flipping between Google Maps and, you know, the maps on the presentation to try to get an idea of, you know, so the people who live on South Main Street and Lake Street, and if we continue South Main Street going up to like Wygant Road, those people are all going to be going over to Ridge Road now, as opposed to like Garden Road. So I mean, I guess I would think like people from South Main Street might go to Gardner, for example, or like when I'm looking at, again, it's hard to tell, but when I was zooming in and I was looking over at like Thorn Street, Sage Street, all of those people are now going to be bussed up to Big Flats. And then I couldn't tell,
Well,
you know.
if I can stop for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
The reason I don't want you saying streets yet, because of the fact that I want to answer your question and nothing's set. So I don't want a whole bunch of calls saying, well, I'm going here, because they heard it here tonight. But you're absolutely correct. You need to see that. This is the best way I can say it. This is a slide. There's actually what we were talking about, a way to zoom in and see it on a satellite view so you can start seeing streets. We can't show it in the presentation. But if I can, I'll just go up to the map real quick, because I think what you're trying to say is the same thing. But they will be able to go through, like this is option A. The divider is 86, but when it gets in here, what street is it? What street is that? But when you go to here, we already know what those streets are. When you go to B, we see this area changes, that is mostly Gardner Road. Now, when you really look at it, I can tell you this is the bus garage. This is the extension to the on-ramp on 86. That, I'm trying to think, Rich, what's that little cul-de-sac right over by your entryway?
Sage Street.
Sage. So Sage, oops, sorry. Sage in the original one, which is right here, which is Center Street, in B goes to Big Flats. But in A also goes to Big Flats. So what happens is you're trying to see how do you get down to that level. The next piece that we have, we will be able to do that, but you've got to be able to do it online. It's very hard to do it here unless we get onto that program, and it's hard to show. But it will get down to it, just like we already know that when we look at, let me just go back to this one, we already know that this is Westinghouse Road, Miracle Mile, this is 14, and then we also know that, you know, Center Street comes down here, Grand Central, Lake comes out here. But you've got to be able to zoom in to see it and then see the color line. So we will have that for you. We just have to get to that point where you'll be able to get onto like the Google map and the slide.
So when do you anticipate that we'll be able to get that? Like, is it something that we can get?
We just have to load it up to our website. We just got, I will say, I just played with it last night for the first time, and the hardest part is I had to figure out where the heck was the slider. And then finally I saw the curtain slide over here, and it actually worked, and I'm like, okay, I can't control it. But it also allows you to see through the colors so that you know the boundary lines, the colors, you can change the opacity. That, I got to work with Sam. Sam could not be here. She does apologize, but she had some care at home that she had to take care of on a medical nature, and she will be working on that too, and we will be putting that out as an announcement and make sure the board gets that in one of our updates.
Okay, yes, because when I was looking at some of that, I think that, is it still possible to be able to shift? I know that with the Gardner Road boundary, it's pretty similar between A and B, so I guess I'm wondering if we're still going to be able to, without going over capacity of, you know, the limit of Gardner Road, maybe be able to pull Gardner Road further down and to make an option C. Do you know what I mean?
As soon as you do that, you change every dynamic, because that's what we've already challenged them with. And it's not that easy, you change every single boundary. That's, I think, what you were talking about. If you want to mention.
No, that's exactly the pain point that I was talking about, is you're trying to balance all these different utilizations and diversity, and once you start playing with it, you might think that it's easy to just redraw a line, but then you redraw one little line and everything was out of whack.
Right.
So, you know, we played with a wide variety of options in order to develop what we hope are the best two for you, so that you don't have to go through that process.
Yeah, and I do appreciate it. I think this was a great presentation. You did a great job. So my concern is when I think about all of the homes that are south over there in Gardner Road, that's one of the lower income. Some people have a lot of rental homes over there. They're single family, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 800 square foot houses. So when I think about resale value, and when I think about the village of Corsets as a whole, and people who might be prospective of, I want to come and move to this area, are they going to say to themselves, is it going to hurt those homes and those people to be able to sell their home because their child, like somebody might be moving into the area and they're going to say, well, my child's school is Big Flats Elementary, and that's quite a far distance than, say, Gardner Road, which would be a much closer option for somebody who, demographically in that area, are they going to have 2 cars? Are they going to be able to afford 1 car? You know, are they single parents? Are they just people with apartments? So I think about that, and I think to myself, well, it seems like it's a neighborhood school. You just cross under Grand Central. It's the same street you cross right under. It's kind of still the village when we move them to Gardner. You know, just to think about that. That's where my mind starts to go. Is thinking about people and trying to want them to move to our area. Right, like thinking about houses, and I think that schools do play a big part in people wanting to come, right? So that's why I'm thinking, like, you know, maybe, I know it's a lot of work, I know it's a big shift, but if we're able to move it, and if we can make some shifts a little bit, if it's possible, if we can have feedback with the community, give them an opportunity to play with the mapping a little bit and really get feedback, to be able to have an option C, because there's still time. And I mean, I guess technically, like, the board can draw district lines anytime they want, right? I mean, we can choose to do, we could move a road right now if we wanted to.
Officially, you can, and you're going to actually also going to do bus routing for it too. I mean, I'm sorry, we are not the professionals here, they are, and we try to challenge them to give us the best too. We can ask them for an extra demographic, and we're going to adjust the cost for it too. We have to, we owe that in our contract. So any type of sort of tinkering with this is going to be an additional plan. That's no problem. You just have to pay for it.
Just along those lines though, I mean, if you flip between option A and option B.
A.
And you have this green right up here, so the other option right there. In option B, all of that does go to Gardner Road. So I think that gets to some of your concern right there, is option B is already showing.
What it does is
those houses would be going to Gardner Road.
Yeah, it's a small, but what I'm.
Christine, it does shift it down, but notice when it does do that, look up in the upper corner, see it?
Here, see that big flats, they take that.
But that's hill, that's fine.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is, because you guys have talked about that before, I'm thinking like, at least this little section here, not a lot, but from here to, I believe this is represented as Gardner, the squares.
Yeah, the oranges, yes.
Yeah, so from here to here, that's Gardner Road. That's much quicker to me than sending a child on a highway really far away, every day now.
But remember, we're not necessarily going on the highway. We have Alderman Hollow Road, we have all of Westinghouse Road. We also have to come over behind the mall, so it's not highway driving.
Yeah, but this is, what I'm saying, this right here, I'm talking about this,
Yeah.
this is a very tiny little sliver here.
Depending on the students in there, correct.
Right, of the students of Center Street. To me, the line, this is still like Grand Central Main Street, right? So it's not extending it by a huge amount. And that's, you know, I'm not trying to redraw everything by any means, no, not at all. You know, I just, that knowing the students, and that I know culturally, you know, students that have gone to Center Street, because I'm on the PTO at Center Street, and some of our PTOs do things a lot differently than other PTOs, and that's fine, you know, like, and so then I guess moving forward, I'd be curious to see, you know, is Big Flats going to be able to do, because when you shift this, are they going to be able to have carnivals and field trips and, you know, really, you know, runs, like, so.
You hit a key question right there.
Right,
Remember how I said this is about culture?
Yeah.
Our teachers have come up, Joe, where's Joe? Joe, and we put this out to the teachers. It's not our PTO, our school, our way, their school, their PTO, their way. At the conclusion of this, it's a new way for all of them, and they have to work hand in hand to make sure our kids get the same experience, whether you're in Big Flats, Gardner Road, or Ridge Road. And it's incorporating everybody's piece. Where we have 4 schools right now, they don't necessarily do the same things. And it shouldn't be by your location. It should be that as Horsehead Central School, we guarantee that opportunity to all of our students, no matter which one of our schools they go to. And then answering the others, we know people want to move to Horseheads, no matter where they're at, because they want access to our schools. We see it all the time, especially when we see it that people try to get into our schools and they don't live here. So we've got to make sure that we look at that from the idyllic point that every student, no matter where they live, gets the same type of opportunity in education. So I think that's the right point. But it's having that new discussion, not our way, not their way. It's a new way, and that's what, Joe, you want to come and talk about that real quick? I'm going to put you on the spot, because that's been the focus of his work, and really a key piece for this whole year as we go through this.
Yeah, so to your question, Katrina, a lot of this gets into an early conversation with the staff in this building.
there's a lot of stress about process and how this all plays out, and staffing questions and everything else. And what our work with the buildings and the principals, how we're going to do it this year is all been about is culture. Starting with talking about how this impacts people, whether that's our staff initially, but also our students and our families. So in conversations with building principals and gathering feedback from staff throughout the year, your point about the experiences that kids have in certain schools, what does that all look like? Those are pieces that have come up that we know are on the radar. And we actually, Sylvia, that I mentioned Dr. Douglas, we're starting to see interest from staff to form what we're calling a redistricting team across the district, across all 4 buildings that have a cultural focus for these exact conversations. You know, to get these things on the radar and start to strategically plan. So that timeline we saw play out tonight, and when a lot of those key pieces follow the next year to 2 or 3 years, where are the logical points to start to have some of these exact conversations and purposely plan for the future?
There's actually 2 timelines. They're the same timeline. Just one's external right now, what you saw, and one's internal. The internal is what Mr. Kohler's talking about, and eventually we're going to merge the 2 so that they see this is happening outside and this is happening inside. We're just trying to make sure we communicate inside to our staff first before we expose it outside.
Yeah, and I would just highlight, you've heard Dr. Douglas say a couple times to make that our way, their way, kind of reframing our thinking to a new way. That came from a staff member. I'll respect their anonymity in that, but in the conversations that staff have been having across the buildings, that was a powerful statement that came up in one of the buildings meetings and getting feedback from staff that in reflecting with the 4 pre-K4 principals, we said, that's really a powerful way that we need to all frame our thinking moving forward. It's not about Center Street students and staff having to assimilate into what already exists. It really is looking at a reset. So even that timeline, I think it was, to talk about redefining what unity means in Greater Nation, that came from our staff, that concept that in terms of why we do some of these things, how do we look at what unity means and that we're not forcing up a population of our districts to just feel like they have to go be what already exists everywhere else. So it's relevant to what we shared, that's one of the many things that we're going to have to work through.
Yeah, so that was, thank you, Joe, very much for that. And thank you, Dr. Douglas. So, and then kind of like what Dan was asking with the clarity of, I know we got an answer, but I wasn't sure if I was 100% clear on it. This was based off of the new buildings and their full capacities, not the current projections, correct?
That's the ones that were provided to us, yes.
Okay. So we provided them that information then.
We have to get them because we also have to meet state ed to get our aid on our building projects too.
Okay, and so, so when we add on the classrooms to Ridge Road, we have to build about 10, but everybody fits into Center Street. That's where I'm a little confused, because there was on the presentation that talked about how Ridge Road, we're adding on 10 classrooms, but the year that Ridge Road is closing for this renovation and construction, everybody fits in Center Street. What I want to make sure is that's truly what's happening, and that there aren't going to be some kids that are not going to fit in Center Street, so they're going to end up at Gardner for a year, or Big Flats for a year, or a different school for a year, and then they're going to be moved again.
We're trying to minimize any of that happening. That's why we've done probably 2 to 4 tabletop exercises where we put in 4 grade levels. The hardest part is we do have to move some out, and that's why the special education program with BOCES is one of them in pre-K, because those are both a transient. But all of our classes, up to 4 sections of each, have been laid out within Center Street. Correct, Tony?
Okay.
20 sections, spaces.
Okay. 20, so, okay. So, but not, with room for specials for the PT, OT, RTI, reading, all those things, the needs that people.
So by specials, I meant like PE, music, library, art, and then in addition, yes, those are city services.
Okay. So, I just guess I didn't realize that Ridge Road was so much smaller than Center Street, size-wise, to have to build an additional 10 onto Ridge Road to house.
Well, remember, we're putting more students into the 3 schools where their school population is going to be about the 300s, they're going to be the 400s.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but Ridge Road is.
And plus,
you're taking Ridge Road and they're gonna all fit in Center Street, we didn't do anything in Center
We're
Street.
forgetting one little piece, that we're resizing and building larger rooms, which they should have been all along. So that's part of this as well. So that's why the third phase, of course, says 2030, is to resize every other elementary room up to the current standard. Now, people will say, well, if we're going to go down in enrollment, why do we need it? Because we do more than we've ever had to do. We didn't have OTPT and everything a long time ago. We had smaller rooms. So what happens is the demands that are placed upon us, the room, the sizes, the opportunities, the educational requirements, special needs, that's why resizing a district, the state does give aid on it, where before they went, that's why at the high school, some of our kids were going to classes, 25 kids in a 700 square foot room, high school kids. Now our rooms are 30 by 30 or about 900, 950 to 1,000 square feet. That's because that's what the state says they should be in now. Those building codes beforehand were less. So we're going through some reemergence as well as resizing, right-sizing. It's like, if you've ever been at one of our elementary schools, the elementary kindergarten bathroom, it's 3 foot by maybe 2.5 feet. Right? State law says it has to be 25 square feet now. So anytime you touch a building that has a classroom, that has a bathroom, you must go in that 25 square foot room. The only way you can do that is resize the room or take less for the class. So that's part of the construction dynamics would say that of how we're getting the aid to do that on the other buildings.
Okay, and then, what am I, so, to think kind of big picture, because I know that we still haven't signed the construction bids for Ridge Road, and I know that things can still change, because that's why we're going through this process, is we can see something and we can say, hang on a second, we need to rethink what we're doing. We can go back and look at what happened with our budget process last year and say, okay, hang on one second, let's go back and review everything, and maybe we're going to make some shifts because we can see that there's some things that would make a little bit better sense now as we have moved forward, especially with like what we saw cut-wise. So I think that being able to go back and revisit financing and really seeing like a breakout of that debt service line to see encompassing of the what's online, capital construction lines, what's not online, you know, state aid, like just to really see it. I'm a visual person, I like to see things. Number-wise breakdown, very simple to see, okay, this is what it is. Because if we need to say, hang on a second, if we can save money by not necessarily doing, because what we had talked about, the fact that buildings 5, 6 right now doesn't have air conditioning, we have to try to pass that in the second referendum because we're cutting that $9 million project from the referendum. So we're going to have kids going K through 4 in air conditioning, and then they're going to be in the hot building in the summertime. So do we say if we can reconfigure things, change things, somehow find a way to look at construction-wise and, okay, maybe we can get the air conditioning, but just to really see all of the numbers. Again, I think that would be really good, especially now that we get to see this. And I know the other big question I had is, you focus primarily on Center Street, like the elementary schools, but did you also have data for the sizes and of like the 5, 6 and what that might look like? Or we just focus primarily on only the elementary schools?
Their work was on the elementaries. That's what the community has voted on. That's what the board directed us in. That is what we provided.
Yes, because sometimes I feel like there's, my thought is because, I mean, yes, previously that is what the board directed, but now that we're looking at the boundary lines and we're looking at bus runs and we're looking at cost and we're looking at expense, does that shift if we change the model and we did a K through 6 model?
You will have a problem with state ed.
Right, okay. I just...
No, I'm just telling you.
I know you like to tell me these things. I like to see real information. I like to look at documents.
Oh.
So that's my question about what would that do? How does that look long-term looking at construction? What does that look like in making, in saying, okay, yes, we're still closing Center Street, but you know what? We're going K through 6, so the intermediate school is now another elementary school, does that change the way that these boundaries look? Does that change cost for busing? What does that actually do? What does that look like?
I would need direction today, honestly. I'm not trying to push back, but I need direction from the board if they wish to do that, because as the board and to the new members, you don't know, legal has already provided its legal opinion. We have a voter authorized project. We either do the voter authorized project. If you wish to cancel it, you must go back to the voters and they must authorize a change of that magnitude, because they will be holding the bag for the financing, and that will affect the budget. That's the problem, Katrina. The voters have decided. The board can say don't do it, but then state ed has the final say. That's the hard part. Debt service and our capital projects have nothing to do with the budget. It is part of the budget, and we get aid for that. So I think you're going around the same discussions we've had, and I have to give the same answer, because I have to caution the board. I have to caution the members of the board to give me direction, because otherwise the community would have to vote to give themselves a significant potential tax increase by not doing what they said to state ed, and state ed is already approved. That's the difficulty.
Okay, right, so I know, because I've heard all of that before, but when you say that about the elementary school, it seems strange to me that you're not able to switch or shift things, but you're allowed to cut a $9 million project out of it, because it's still the same referendum, so how are you allowed?
Well, I didn't do that, the board did.
I mean, right, I don't know when we did that, because I didn't vote on cutting out a $9 million project that would provide cool air to our children, but, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's a discussion. It's not me trying to say, I want an answer, I want to do all these things. I am thinking about a really big picture, and I'd like as much information as possible, with a lot of conversations and with people in the community involved, to try to make the best step moving forwards. Because I think, having been here and lived here my whole life, when Sing Sing Road closed, and I had people, my good friends, that came and visited me, and they're like, oh, do your kids go to Sing Sing? That was the best elementary school. And I said, no, no, they don't. Well, what happened? And there are teachers now that still teach that were part of that closure at Sing Sing Road, that are now at Gardner Road, and they know the burn, they know the hurt, they know that even though we looked at these lines and what happened with these lines, it was still a much different process. So that's why I want to have lots of conversations. I appreciate your presentation. Your work was excellent. Thank you. It spurs more conversation. There's nothing wrong with more conversation, giving more information, and looking at a huge picture.
That's
right?
why we have the 3 months.
So, right. So, that's why I don't like it when it's like, I need to know right now by the whole board. This is the decision
No,
right now.
I want you to be
more
very
information.
clear. I need to know if I need to do a course correction from the board. And if I need to do a course correction, I've got to start making that shift. I can't wait.
Yeah, I just want to offer perspective on that. I mean, I applaud your desire to think creatively. I think, frankly, from my point of view, the thing is we did that. We went through a process a couple of years ago in a retreat where we looked at all these different configuration, multiple elementary schools, K through 6. I mean, the timeline of doing something like this is years in the making. And we're on a train that left the station years ago, right? And the track is headed a certain way. We have the ability to steer the train a bit, but I think what you're proposing would be a complete rerouting, right? To say, well, consider changing the intermediate or middle to an elementary. I mean, it's just not theoretically possible, but I think that the board has already, in prior boards, we identified the path we were going to take. We put a project to vote. I think we have some ability, and you raised good points about some of the specific lines here. We should look at those. I just don't think rethinking the entire project and school makeup, elementary, intermediate, secondary, is possible at this point based upon the timeline that we're on. And I think we've already given that direction and received that direction from the voters. So again, I think it's good to think about different points of view. That's my concern, is I think we're too far down the path for a dramatic change like that at this point.
So I was part of the board when they did the discussions about multiple schools and boundaries. That was an 18-month process. So as Mr. Christmas said, the trains left the station. We're going on this project. What I'm hearing you say, Katrina, is you want to stop the train, and now you want to spend 18 months to discuss, should it be K-6, should it be a different configuration, and let's bring lots of people in to discuss more about it. I don't think we have 18 months for this decision. The train is going down the road, and we want to come up with the best possible decision. And I thought tonight was about boundary lines and a discussion to start that. I have to go home and study the data because I'm not very good at seeing data initially. I didn't think it was a discussion about K-6. I didn't come into this meeting tonight at all thinking, should we discuss a K-6 configuration? So if you're proposing a K-6 configuration, I'll lay my marker down now. I'm opposed. We already have a system in place. I say the train's going. Let's help it along.
I think, you know, the hard part is that as a board, and I know the majority of our current board members right now, we're not part of the board. I mean, I think it's probably now only Warren, Dan, and myself. Mary Ann, I think, might have been here as well. But those are decisions that were made, and as a board, we need to continue to look forward. If we continue to stop and reevaluate and look backwards every time we bring new board members on, our district is never going anywhere, right? And the community already voted on this. We voted on this configuration. The reason, and we're already, if we stop now, or even if we delay this timeline, it's then also going to delay, you know, everything in that timeline that Dr. Douglas showed us at the beginning of this evening. You know, all of the communication and the assignments and all of that stuff, and the construction is already happening, right? So to stop that now and have this discussion, which, you know, over the past 12 months, we've had the discussion over and over again, and we voted multiple times that we are going to continue and we're going to move forward. So I think that's what we need to do, and we need to continue on that timeline and continue on the process that the board several years ago already put into place and the voters approved on. And then on the comment related to the air conditioning, you know, I think when we vote on a referendum, we're voting on like a, I'm going to say a bucket, right? Of this is what we're trying to do with this referendum. Recognizing that priorities may shift in that with things such as air conditioning or furniture or, you know, technology, things like that, depending on making sure that we are using the money appropriately of what we have. Because a lot of things change. I mean, inflation has changed significantly since that referendum was voted. And we said that back when we presented to the community and they voted on that referendum, that this is what we are planning on from a big picture standpoint, but we may need to shift some of those priorities in the middle of that based on cost, based on budget, and based on the financials that we have within the districts. And so that's why, I mean, I don't think any of us wanted to say we want kids to be in hot classrooms and take away the air conditioning, but it was a priority shift based on other things that were happening at the time, which I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but that's kind of how all that happens.
I have one question. Sure. So the Center Street kids that would go to Ridge Road, they will stay at Center Street today even when the door comes?
I did that. So the Center Street kids,
That,
when we shift to one of these two, whichever one's decided, everybody in purple, if they were part of Center Street, which a vast majority of that is, everything in that black outline, those Center Street kids will still be going to Center Street for that additional year. But they're not, it goes to that theme.
right, I get that,
Yeah.
but I just want to know,
Yeah.
are they being moved twice?
The vast majority of those students won't be moved. They'll be returning to the same building, just that they'll be going to Ridge Road at Center Street. Then the next year, they will move for the first time, where Ridge Road students that were original Ridge Road students will move to Center Street and back. But here's the sort of pros and cons. They go to a building for a whole year that's climate controlled. They return to a building that parts are climate controlled, and they don't have to endure 2 years of open construction, which Big Flats and Garden Road must endure.
Right.
Yeah.
My other quick question is, when we go to this configuration, is it still going to be just one building principal in all these, and in each one of these elementary schools?
One building principal with the size of the school, maybe looking at some dean of students, or that's been a request. I don't know until we get to that point.
Okay, so there could be an additional.
There could be an additional, but we will also be reducing administration too.
Right, but okay, never mind, I'll move on.
One last quick question.
Sure.
On this configuration, because you were showing me that the white thing is the bus garage. And so when I look up with the one part, I think it's, hang on, I'm zooming in, so let me get, I think it's option D.
Is that option B up there? Okay.
That's, oh, B. No, okay, go back to option A then. Okay, so that is, so can you tell me what the road is though, like that top line?
Oh.
For that, there's like a
I
lot.
might be able to. You're talking about this right here?
Yeah.
That looks like that. Wait a second, okay. Center Street, going out, there's 14 firehouses right there, I think, and this is Broad Street. So that's coming across, not Broad Street, the next road over to a certain point, and I think it's up Gardner, is a division line, and I imagine that's Broad Street School.
Okay, so Broad Street, so
West
West
Lake
Lake
Road,
Street, so my children would be going to Big Flats Elementary in that configuration.
Well, this
It's a
isn't
great
about.
school. What's wrong
yeah,
with Big Flats Elementary?
This isn't about where our kids are going though. I mean, so I just want to make sure, I mean, this is, we're looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We're not board members to do what's best for our own individual kids and our own struggles.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, so when you go through, when we look at the two difference, when you're chopping up a village like that, okay?
Right.
And you think about the resale value of your home and how close you are to a school, proximity-wise, within walking distance, within a 2-mile radius, if we ever had to go back to the busing option because of the expense of electric busing, trying to recapture children that are within that, because I believe I'm within 2 miles to Gardner Road, or people on Broad Street are within 2 miles to Gardner Road. If you did have to make that chop of the mandatory, you would save money by making sure that they were included in that school rather than having them be bused. The other thing that you're losing too when you cut right that, like that with that line, is neighborhood kids and riding bus and playing with your friends and meeting people in the classroom and saying, hey, do you want to come hang out with me? Oh, I can't come and hang out with you because you live all the way in Big Flats and that's a challenge for me. But yeah, if you were my friend and we went to the same close school together, I could run down the street from you. So I think that's really important to make sure that we're
That is one of the
looking at
discussions that they really work on, and I think that's why you see the major difference between that area and option A and option B, because option B gives that same type of thought. So, if I'm thinking for them, they have to give you a little bit of both. Do you disrupt that neighborhood, or here do you use the natural boundary of 86, because the kids tend not to go beyond there because of the history when it actually passed through and didn't have the flyovers, so to speak. So that's why I believe they put that up there. Julie, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say, I don't think there's an easy way, and I appreciate the information you put together, but I don't think there's an easy way. There's always going to be, because they're divided, there's always going to be, you know, gosh, 2 streets over goes to a different school. We're literally closing the building, so we're redoing all the lines. It's going to be effective regardless. I think we just have to look at the information they provided. You're going to put together that sliding scale for us.
Yeah.
And so we'll be able to look at that and then gather some additional information.
We'll try as soon as I can, just because Sam is dealing with something personal. We'll try to get that to you tomorrow, if not the next day. I just want to be a little respectful of her time, as we've just seen it, and then we'll also work with Ron and his team to make sure that you can see that very easily.
And we vote on this in October?
September.
September is when we go to vote, so there's only the one more meeting that we won't be able to attend that they'll have in August.
Well, there will also be some community sessions too, because we want to do that with staff, and then a final discussion in September.
Okay.
So
And
if you
then
have
the
any
vote should be
questions,
that night.
if you have any questions, please get them to us, because we're going to take this video tonight and take the questions to start. That's, as Sam said, we're going to be all over the questions. So, because that helps us with Rich, that helps us with Ron and their team, with any thoughts that we have to bring back and update. And that will be recorded, so you'll be able to see that if you're on vacation, just like anybody else. I wouldn't advise tuning in my way or on vacation. I find that you shouldn't enjoy yourself. But what happens is, we also want to make sure there's time as we get back into school, because we're going to be sending this out to all of our communication links that the school has, to make sure our families know what's going on throughout the summer as well as September.
And they're going to have access to the sliding scale as well?
Yeah, we're going to be putting it right on our website.
Right on the website for them to be able to move it and to see, and so that if they have concerns, they can, they can come and talk and
They can either come, or they can give me a call,
Or they
just
can
call us, we will
or
get
email.
somebody to them, yes, absolutely.
and they can come, and this is the
We'll
point
sit
in
down and
time.
talk with them, yeah.
This is the point in time that it's very important for them to come and voice their concerns
Absolutely.
to the board, so that the board can make a very well-informed decision on boundary lines based on public feedback.
And I can tell you, I have to say, what I'm very proud of is in the census, getting that many people to respond was unusual. And it was very telling, and we'll put that up, because we're also developing our frequently asked questions off of their questions. So, but we will be developing that over the next couple of days. Mr. Conklin?
All right, I think we've had a robust discussion.
Thank you, Ron, I appreciate it. We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
Ron, I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate your work. Being asked if we could have a recess, so I guess I'll use executive authority, and if we can have maybe a 7-minute recess so we can get out, maybe enjoy the night.
Say 8:20?
Yes.
Go ahead. Try between 8:20 and 22.
Thank you.
Carrie, you want this back?
I know you can do it. Move that up right now.
You're back.
I got to spin for everything.
Okay, so we're returning from our brief recess, and we're going to go to section 6, which is a report from the superintendent.
Thank you, President Conklin. Just real quick, a short report because we've been here for a while. Graduation was a huge success. I want to thank the high school, the board, everybody. I know it was a day late, $1 short. At least got a little plug in there to Mr. Barris during the time as he was having his son, but I have to get the hats off to WNY. They covered us very extensively. And we do appreciate all of their support because we actually did call them and say what were the risks for that Wednesday night, and there was thunder and lightning. We would have never been able to complete the graduation. So So I know that sometimes disappoints people, but until we have the ability to be outside and inside, such as that our neighboring districts sometimes do, we are in this pattern possibly for 1 or 2 more years according to the building plan. But I want to congratulate the class of 2024 and wish them all the best, and I know the board does as well. Just so you know, on the agenda, there was some extended school year date change. It was 7/15 that we approved. We had to put them back on for 7/8 because it was just a mix-up between when it was starting, so that's what you'll see tonight. Committee structure, now that we have officers seated, I will sit there and meet with the officers to talk about the 2 standing committees. Terry will be sending out probably by the end of this week, if not by the beginning of next week, sort of a, what is it, a forms or a team? Forms, where you can slide up your preferences. Preference number 1 is at the top, preference number 2 is next, 3, 4, 5, depending on the list for any of the committee structures, and we'll get that out. Please complete that as soon as possible. We had our redistricting, so I don't have to talk about that. The biggest thing is, as the officers start to consider some of the summer, we tend to sometimes do a summer retreat. We will need to know and then try to do a doodle calendar if the board wishes to do that, but I'll leave that up to the officers. So other than that, we're at the end of our first meeting. We've got to go through a little bit more. That will complete my report for right now, and we'll move forward. So thank you all for a wonderful start today.
All right, moving on to section 7, there is no audit committee report. So we have to take an action vote on 7.03 through 7.05. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
All right, before I ask for any questions, I would like to take a couple of minutes to explain 7.05, what it is and what it is not. So, as you can see, it's a bid on time and materials for electric, plumbing, and general contracting and trades. This does not affect the cost at all of the current project. Those contracts have already been signed, so those trades have to honor what they sign. So what is this? Right now at this time we have a 3-year deal with these 3 companies, and they, I don't want to get it. So we have a 3-year contract with them. And what we're voting on tonight is after the 3 years, there's a clause in the contract that there can be a 2-year extension. And both parties agreed to open and sign proposed 2-year extension. Enter contract decided they would not alter their wages, so the other 2 trades did alter their wages a little bit. The only change from the 3-year contract to the 2-year extension is the changing of the 2 wages for the 2 companies that you can read. What is the purpose of this contract? So I don't know that this is a legal term, but I call it a just-in-case contract. So just in case our plumbers can't do a job based on time and or scope of the project, this plumbing company agrees if we call them, they will come and do the job at that rate. Similarly, the general contractors do that, the electricians do that. So it's just in case we need help, they will do this. Now, this contract was in effect last year, and the electrical just in case was used 1 time, the plumbing just in case was used 2 times, and the general trades was used 2 times. So we only pay if it's used. So this is kind of like I see it anyway, as kind of like an insurance policy. These people are pledging. We don't have to put it out to bid. They're pledging. If we call, they'll show up and do the work that we're asking of them at the rates we're proposing to extend the contract tonight. So before
I open for any other questions, that's what I was looking to do. I don't know, my microphone on where so. Okay, well, it's back.
Yeah, you're
feedback.
mumbled. You're mumbled. Here, try it out.
All right, so with that said, I open it to the rest of the board for any curiosities, questions, or comments.
7.3, I will abstain from.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that now.
You can say and then state the reason, and I imagine it's because of the people.
Because I am, or the PTO. So I'll be abstaining.
I also have to abstain for that same number, for the same reason I am in PTO. And then, just to clarify what you were saying, this is us extending it for 2 years?
Yes.
For 2 years, just in case?
Correct.
Okay, I don't know.
So just so you understand, this was put out to bid 3 years ago. Went through the whole process, and those were the only 3 companies that bid at that time.
Yeah.
So if your thought is, thinking ahead where you're going to think people are going to be knocking down the doors and there's a better possible alternative, based on history, that doesn't seem to be an accurate reflection of what the market is showing.
If I can have Katie Katie's looking at me, this is a renewal for 1 year.
So
We have the option to go 2 years.
I thought you said 2 years, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it was bid last year. The bid document allows for 3 one-year renewal periods. So we're exercising that right to renew for 1 more year. The 3 contractors you see on the document tonight are the only 3 that put in the last time. So in the interest of fair open competition, these were the 3 trades that also put in the last year. With the 1 remaining flat and the 2 years with nominal increases, this really is the best course of action for the district to move for the additional year.
And the reason why you have these riders in there is because as soon as you put it out on the street, you're subject to whatever anybody wants to charge at that point. This is controlled, and that's why with RFPs or anything, we try to have options so that we can control, because sooner or later, it's going to have to go out again. But this gives a little more predictability. We do not, I do believe, like President Conklin said, this is more of a backup. We try to do as much as we can in-house, but sometimes our staffing levels and the emergencies happen too quick for the amount of staffing that we have.
So what you're saying is this is the end of the 3-year. This is extending it 1 more year.
1 year, we have the option for 2 more years of extensions if we choose.
Within this contract that we vote on, so they're giving us another 2 years within this.
Yes, 1 more year.
Okay.
And then this time next year, we have the option to renew again for another 12 months, or we can put it back out to bid.
Right. We would be in the second of the 3
It's an
years.
annual
Okay.
process, yeah.
Thank you very much, Katie, for that clarification.
All right, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Let's go to section 8. We have a vote on 8.02. Can I have a motion?
Sorry.
Curiosities, discussion, comments?
That's the HR, right?
Yes.
HR.
I have some questions.
Okay.
Okay, so in section B, line 1 and line 31, are they the same person? Are we going on them twice?
Caitlin, we may have a
Yes, it does look like there's a duplicate.
Okay,
So
They
we have-
can only be appointed once, so
Okay.
we will correct the record.
Thank you. Additionally, and just to clarify, so lines 1 again, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were also voted on the 6/20 meeting with the same effective date, but a different wage.
Yes, that's because it's those asterisks mean it's an adjustment. The starting rate effective 7/1/24 is that 1608.
Okay.
So we have to correct them because they're only summer employees.
Okay, so then from the June 20th meeting, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 others that had that same title with a different effective date that we are not bringing up to this rate, is that correct?
That will happen automatically. They started within the last fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
All the coaching positions, they're all stipend, right? But there's no money amount.
That's per contract. The contract has a difficult calculation. I don't know if they had that back then. What happens is we appoint them, then we have to do, we will reapprove them with their calculation for their season and length. And then we will bring them back again because they will have additional extra seasons that we have to calculate. It's a convoluted process.
Okay, so right now, we're just approving, but
We're
not
appointing
what they're
them,
gonna
yes.
make.
Yeah.
You're appointing them.
Yeah,
Okay.
what they'll make is according to a formula set forth.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I noticed that we don't have a varsity boys assistant lacrosse coach. Is that a position we're not filling? Is that a position that? I
That's
don't-
just currently open at this point.
Open, okay, thank you.
No problem. And so for the new members, these are the positions that we know of as right now. We try to take care of the whole year. That way people aren't questioning. As we go through, there will be some that will all of a sudden say, I've taken a new job, or I'm not going to coach, and then we have to reappoint. They'll resign, or the positions that we haven't filled yet, we will bring them at a point to appoint. So we're very good.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Miscellaneous items for action. Action vote on 9.02 and 9.03. Can I have a motion, please? Curiosities, comments, discussion. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we have no policy committee report at this time, so we have no board policies to read. I want to say on my behalf, first of all, thank you to the board. Secondly, you have a folder in front of you, and you have to sign documents. And in addition to that, you have to see Ms. Clark before you leave, because there are other forms or documents that you must sign. And then I made an error here in the agenda, the reorganizational part of the meeting, where we approved the forms about where we sign if we have a code of ethics. But did anybody want to declare conflicts at that meeting out front? Or you want to declare what Katrina and Sue had with the PTO? I think probably at the reorganizational portion, that would have been the point maybe to say those things. Does anybody have any other?
But because there is a sheet over there on conflicts of interest, you can write out all your conflicts. That's the same way. As well as if you have a conflict that arises during the year that you didn't think about, just state it, that's all, but try to get those on file because we're expected to keep them. Terry has the piece of paper.
And I filled it out.
Okay. Yeah, not everybody has it, I don't think.
It was in my blue pen that she gave me.
You had it because of the nutrient.
No, she gave.
Oh, now? Oh, you, look at it, you see, that's why Terry
I didn't fill it out.
More, there was one in there.
Signed it. I didn't say.
Okay, that's fine.
Conflicts on it though.
That's fine. I mean, in the past, people might have said it out loud, I didn't know, so.
Yeah, that's fine, that's
Okay.
fine, that's fine.
All right, so,
Lastly, are there any board member comments? Mr. Christmas?
I just want to echo, I think, Dr. Douglas, your comments about graduation, having a graduating senior. It was a wonderful ceremony, and I appreciate all the effort that went into that. Facilities, the music is always, incredible. Enjoy that, and it was just a wonderful evening. So thank you for what everyone did for the class of 2024. And I just want to say, I think it's wonderful that Sue and Julie joined the board, and I hope, we'll have, it'll be great to have new voices and perspectives, and I hope we have a wonderful year together as a great, working team on the board. So thank you very much and welcome.
Just want to echo the comments about graduation. Also having a graduating senior, I thought the district did a great job in the planning and the execution of graduation. The photos from Maria Strini's studio were fabulous. I went through all of them today. But everything was flawless and really nice, so thank you for all. I know it takes a village to pull all that together, and then also the flexibility of having to move it because of the weather, so it was really special, so thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted for me in May. I appreciate your vote. And I'm glad you guys had a great graduation. I had 4 children that graduated from this district, and I'm looking forward to our oldest granddaughter graduating next year. Do they still do project graduation? No.
It's a parent-based, that's the hard part.
Yeah, I know, it's parent-based, I know.
I think it started to shift, really, COVID. That was the last time.
They did one during COVID, they did one for 2020.
Yeah. But it was difficult.
But the attendance of it just continued to drop.
Right. And is there some reason that we graduate during the middle of the week and not on Saturdays anymore?
Right now, just because of weather. We're outside graduation that the board has told us to do.
Okay, because back in the day, if we couldn't be outside of the football field, we went into the gym.
Yeah.
And we have a lot smaller classes now. And Saturday graduation, then project graduation happened right after that, where you might get more students if everything, but when, it's just my opinion.
That is the ultimate goal, is to get back to a Friday night once we have
Friday night or Saturday.
the space to be able to do it both outside or inside, so that you can declare a time. That's what the board established when we went through the process.
Because we held many graduations in Sing Sing gym.
We would have to, the problem is, we would have to limit the number of people that can go into it. Where
I
the
don't know if
state.
there's ever a limit, because Christopher's class, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But I just wondered why we were doing it in the middle of the week.
Yeah, it's basically because of weather, to make sure that we can try to, we never want to get to Saturday, because Saturday, we're going to pick the best time, rain or shine. So we haven't ever had to go off of Wednesday or Thursday for the past 4 or 5 years now.
Right. I guess I just think about families who want to travel in,
Yep.
you know. Okay, thank you.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Please look at your email for your first update.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and if you're traveling on the 4th of July, travel safely, and if you're staying home, enjoy the 4th of July. So, thank you and good night.
All set? Hold your position until that red light goes off. The red light. Bill. Red light.